welcome to Women Atheists UNLOAD, a show made by women for everyone. Today we're going to talk about how trans people are under attack. And for that, I will have a very, very interesting panel, which I will introduce as soon as we start the show. In the meantime, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, make the top chat, the live chat live, and engage with us. And in the meantime, see you in a bit.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that.
Hey, good to see you, everyone. So as you can see, we have a great panel today. We have Charolette as a co-host today. Hi, Charolette. How are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Then someone we don't introduce anymore, student Dr. Ben. Hey.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Stephanie, hi. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. Sorry, my headphones cut out for a second. Now they're back.
It's the first time we have you on the show, right?
It is the first time.
Yeah. Nice.
It's time for everything.
Yeah. And finally, What the Beck. Nice to meet you too.
Nice to see you folks. Good to be here.
So let's start with the topic of the show. So some people will say that we are exaggerating, that we are overreacting. But so how are transgender people under attack, especially in the US, but also in the UK and other countries in the world today? What the Beck, do you want to start?
Oh my goodness. The list is so long, Cindy. Where do we start? Yeah, we are currently, just to start off the conversation, we are currently this year, we have 155 anti-trans bills, 130 plus last year, and we are at a total of probably over 300 because I looked that up 2 days ago. It's probably over 300 now, but we're at 300 anti-trans bills just in the United States. So, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Definitely.
Yeah. Stephanie?
Well, it's not just the bills. It's a social to rip off one of the accusations that are frequently leveled at us. It's a social contagion, and it's being driven by a desire to focus on one small, very small group to gin up, fear and loathing, basically, for political ends. And it's being carried on in legislatures. It's being carried on in news media. It's being carried on in social media. It's being carried on by people who find that using us as whipping girls, whipping boys, scapegoats, increases visibility, keeps eyes on screens, keeps asses in seats. And it's with no real thought to who we are as human beings, who we can be as siblings, as children, as neighbors, as co-workers, as competitors. I mean, it's covering it all. It's basically people are using us as a piñata to some end, and that end, I believe, is power.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and it's really scary the way that we're seeing this go, because like Stephanie mentioned, it's not only in politics. Like it is there, it is in our social circles, it's in sports, it's in like individually for us. Even every moment of my life that I shouldn't need to defend my existence has become about defending my existence. Like even apart from the people online who are actively bullying me on a daily basis, which like unfortunately I just expect that now. I get comments on the daily of at least somebody saying, you should not be a doctor, don't touch children, because I'm trans. They don't know me. They've never seen my clinical skills. They've never been my preceptor. They do not know my medical capabilities. And they decided that because you are X, that you are bad. And it's not only from those people either. Like there's a lot of good intentioned people that are taking poor steps in allyship. And this is something that I've heard Stephanie talk about in great detail. Like there are some well-intentioned people who continually make us defend why we're alive. And this is actually a point that I made on Twitter a couple of days ago, was that like you see content creators from other groups, or even like take your standard cishet white man that's invited on a show to talk about his accomplishments. Like he wrote a book or he gave a talk, he did a debate, whatever. And they bring him on to talk about this accomplishment that he did. And then you have trans people who they're brought on like, hey, can you come on my show and talk about why trans people are people? Or like, can you talk about why you deserve rights? Like, is that my job? Like, is my existence as a content creator to you simply that I have to come on stream and explain over and over again that I'm human? I should not have to do that. Nobody should have to do that ever. You should just take it at the fact that I'm human, and that should be enough. And I know that was a little bit of a rant, but that's something that's been on my mind a lot recently. And I know that with the concept of this show, a lot of this is kind of airing out things that are frustrations that don't get talked about enough. But I think that that's one that I've specifically struggled with this week.
Yeah,
it's definitely a problem, especially the one that's been coming up that I've seen a lot lately is the accusation of being groomers. Like they're just throwing it out there randomly. It's basically like people who are living lifestyles or who are that I don't approve of being around children is automatically like they're conflating it with this toxic predatory behavior, which it isn't at all. Whereas on the other side, you actually see a lot more of that and it doesn't get called out.
Well, that's interesting you should bring that up, because it's again, it plays into this notion of fear and loathing. It's like, oh well, you're trying to trans my children, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that. No, we're just trying to freaking live. That's it. And it's what's really curious is I believe there was a fellow in Australia who was all the trans are taking over and it's going to be terrible and all of this stuff, and the guy turns out to have a cache of trans porn on his computer. It's like every accusation is a confession. It's like, dude, you're obsessed with us for some reason, whether it's fetishizing or this and that. The point is, we're just people. We're just actually individual human beings. And to your point, Ben, about being called upon to defend ourselves, one of the biggest accusations that you see in the press, particularly recently, is they're so hostile. They're so shrill. Why don't the trans blah blah blah? Well, maybe it's because we keep getting asked about why we are who we are, and being forced to explain yourself. And that gets tiresome. I'd much rather talk about my last sailing adventure. I'd much rather talk about the bags I'm making at work. I'd much rather talk about the friends I hang out with. And, you know, it's not like I sit around and think about, oh, am I trans today? Am I cis today? I mean, it's not like I'm like I obsess about the whole thing, except in these contexts where, you know, we're doing the exact same thing. We're trying to explain ourselves to an audience on YouTube, which gets funny. You know, that it gets complex.
You know, I don't even understand why they say we're trying to groom people. Does anybody really think we want to groom children to be trans so they can live a miserable life with us? No, we want everybody to be themselves. We don't do this because it's fun. We don't do this because we don't know who we are. We're doing this because we know who the fuck we are. Excuse my French. That's exactly why, you know, we are who we are. We don't want kids to go through crap and get harassed in school and bullied and treated like shit. And then they become adults and they have no rights like us. We don't want that. You know, we're not trying to groom anybody. We want everybody to be themselves. And if human isn't good enough as an identification marker for these bigots and these haters, I don't know what else to tell them. You know,
well,
they're brainwashed and they're indoctrinated, and I don't know any way to stop it unless you're going to get the parents who are teaching their children to hate to stop teaching them, because it all starts at home.
It's interesting that like no matter where we're at in society or what issues we're talking about, there's always going to be somebody, like in this societal structure of hierarchy and power, there's always going to be somebody at the bottom that people do not want to be, and it doesn't matter what that is. Like, as long as somebody has to be that, and society will do everything that it can to keep somebody in that spot. And you take an issue like this, for example, and like if I were tomorrow to say that I'm not trans, you know, I'm actually a cis woman, but I like dressing like this, I like looking this way. Like, that's an argument that comes up from a lot of people. Is like, well, but why can't you just be a cis woman that is a butch lesbian, or why can't you just be a woman that likes masculine things? Well, but here's where we get with that, with the social hierarchy. Like, they're still going to be at the bottom of society, because like they're still giving you this tiered structure of, this is what is an ideal woman, or this is an ideal man. These are their roles in society. And like, yeah, you can be a woman and be masculine, but you're down here because, yeah, that's fine for you, but I want to be able to look down on you and say, well, but I'm here and you're this person. And I think like it's such weird argumentation from their side, because no matter what, like, they're still putting us down there. It's just they want us to be down there on their terms instead of on our terms. And you get into this whole weird logical game with them.
And this is where I think where I have a little, you know, there's always this discussion about how gender is a social construct. Well, it is and it isn't, you know? I mean, it yes, it's a social construct. It comes with expectations. Oh, you're a woman, you should appear this particular way. People have ideal expectations. But for trans people, and I'm only speaking for myself, it's not about the clothes, and it's not about the appearance, and it's not about the performative aspects of gender, which, you know, which we are taught, which we do learn. But it's hard for me to say that when I was 3.5 years old, I had been taught anything about that. And yet it was something I felt, you know. It's just, why? I don't know. Somebody tell me why. I can't explain
I'd
it.
love to know. I'd love to know. I'd love to know for
But
myself.
but the
Steph.
point is, yeah, I know. But the point is, this is part of me. It's part of who I am. It shouldn't be anything unusual. I mean, it might be curious to people, but it shouldn't be anything that's either demonized or set aside or people get terrified of. Because and this is where the social construct stuff comes in. It's like, this is a human being. This is who she thinks she is. But time tested and since Christ was a corporal, she can't be. She's the impossible girl. She's impossible. And that is something I think I wish people could understand, how being at odds with the societal expectations vis-a-vis how you feel internally, you know, your own personality, how difficult that is. And I think that if cis people would examine themselves a little bit, they'd find they have a gender identity too. And that they would be loath to give up, that they would not wish to alter, change, manifest in any other way, because they're comfortable with it. And I've always been comfortable with who I am. The only time I've become uncomfortable is when people say, you're impossible, it doesn't work. You can't do that. You can't be who you are.
I actually saw a really interesting, I think it was on Instagram or something, somebody talking about how it's actually, we say that gender is a social construct and race is a social construct, but they're actually, like, as they are defined currently, it's not a social construct, because that would imply that anywhere there's a society, these roles would naturally evolve. That it's actually a colonizer construct. Like, that's where this is rooted in. That's where it came from. Like, the understanding of that there's only these two genders, male and female, and these are the expectations and the way that they need to exist in society, for society to work. Like, that's where that's rooted in, because there's a lot of cultures across the globe that do have a concept of, like, more than just the two genders. Like, it's really very much like a European American kind of white construct that's just sort of, and of course tied very closely with religion, because they use that to enforce a lot of it and say this is the way it has to be because, you know, God says it is. And I thought that was a really, I mean, it made a lot of sense to me anyway, that take, you know, because there's, you know, indigenous cultures here have the two spirits, and that's only one example. Like, there's a lot of different cultures that don't define just a man and a woman and defined by their genitalia.
See, and that's an interesting point, because something that's been circulating around the internet, which I hate to bring this up because I dislike this a lot, but Matt Walsh and his "What Is a Woman" documentary, he makes this point of going to someplace in sub-Saharan Africa and, like, interviews these people there, and is like, can someone with a penis be a woman? And they're like, no. And he's like, see, it's an American thing to be trans. Like, other people in the world, like, bro, you selectively picked a group that agreed with you and then asked them what they thought. And of course, surprise, they agreed with you. And you didn't take into account anybody else, only the people that agreed with you. So interesting little selection bias there, buddy. But, like, is that's what Charlotte's saying is, like, directly opposite of what a lot of the rhetoric is saying about trans people. But I would agree with Charlotte that there's a lot more data that's not being considered by these people.
Yeah, the problem is that science, and especially brain science, has gone so fast in the last decade or 20 years that everyone is still hung up with the knowledge that we had 20 years ago, and we now know that almost all of it regarding trans people is wrong, and that's one of the big issues we have to face, is that when you spoke earlier about having to educate people. Yes, we have to educate them because they're still stuck with the science 20 years ago. And if you talk about what the science says today, then they won't. They will just disregard it or not believe it, or so. Yeah, it's hard.
Well, you know, Stephanie made me think about when I was a kid. I was raised in a Catholic household, and matter of fact, all three of us were all raised in, you know, some kind of a church environment. So I wasn't groomed for it, but at 5 years old, I got mad because my genitalia was wrong. So I understand what you're saying, Steph. Explain that to me. You know, it's not like I lived in a house with heathens and devil worshippers and satanic people and atheists, you know? So I see more and more, talk to more and more trans people, and they came from these indoctrinated homes. So how could it be grooming anyways? That's ridiculous. You know, it's absolutely asinine.
Yeah. So I have a question, and so I have a bit of an answer for that, but I'll let you answer. Or before that, why do you think it's so effective targeting trans people? Why do you think we make such a good target for politicians?
I
Well, I
think it
think
depends on the era we're in and what's going on in the world. You know, they go through these roller coaster phases of attacking us, leaving us alone. They pick on the Muslims, and they attack us, and then they leave us alone. They pick on someone else, the Afghani, whatever. It doesn't matter. And I think it's just like a cycle. From what I've seen, it looks like it's just a cycle. And every so many years they go, oh, we forgot to pick on trans people. We should get on that. And they do that for a few years, and then it calms down, and people start to forget about it. And then some politician goes, oh, I need to use, you know. So I feel like we're just political tools, you know, being used to further someone else's agenda of bigotry and hatred, so they can keep the entire civilization cis het white, because that's what they want.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the motivating. I think fear is a powerful motivator to drive people's attitudes. Like, especially if you're coming from the authoritarian side of things, because if there's something to fear, you can put yourself in the position of being the person that will protect you from the thing you fear. We'll make sure that your children are safe from the gay people, the black people, the native people, the yellow peril. I mean, I'm using these terms over the course of my 69 years. I've heard them all. And one by one, it's become less and less acceptable to go after some of those categories I just mentioned. And so when you're running out of people to go after, let's take a look at the most vulnerable, the tiniest segment that provokes a certain amount of curiosity and, in some people's minds, revulsion, because it's hard to understand. As we've said, it is a difficult thing to grasp. And but if you can go for it and make it a point of fear, then you have something effective. and I it's really ramped up. Like, the contrast between 2012 and 2018 is vast. I mean, when I came out in 1998, people were just, okay. Some people were like, oh my God, this is what. But there wasn't this drumbeat in the public. It was just more of sorting myself with my community, and eventually it worked out. Now it's a horse of a different color. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I wanted to jump on the point of understanding, because I think there's like it's very easy for people, of course, to hate something that they don't understand. But I think that we have a problem with not only the explicit haters not understanding. Like I think even among supposed allies, there's this idea that I need to understand you, or I need to understand your experience and where you're coming from. And I see that a lot. People will ask questions of like asking us to try to explain what it's like to be trans. It's like, you don't need to understand it. And the fact is, you're not going to understand it, because the only thing you are capable of fully understanding is the way you see the world. That's it. And like you can try to put yourself in someone else's shoes, but you can't do it. You can't ever actually do that. So it's a problem when people demand that you convince them to understand, or like you have to dumb things down in a way that makes sense for their perspective. But like it's a problem to demand that from a group of people. Like I will never understand what it's like to be a racial minority in the United States. I will not understand that, no matter how hard I try. Even if I read all of the books, talk to all of the people, like I will never understand that. But that should not be a factor for why I need to determine that my thoughts on their existence are legitimate just because I think I've done enough to understand it. So like, and this is a note for people who want to be allies. Like, be conscious of like, am I expecting these people to persuade me that I understand where they're coming from? Or like check your expectations of us a little bit. Like, your understanding is not really the issue. Like, I don't care really whether or not you understand me. Like, you don't need to. I need you to respect me. And that's it. So focus more on the respect and less on the understanding. And I think, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to understand, but like, don't make that the cornerstone of your efforts.
Yeah, it's like the old Monty Python bit. Your wife, is she a goer? Tell me, what's it like? It's come on, that's not even the friggin' point here. That really isn't. And can you imagine sitting down with another minority and just pushing constantly? What's it like? What's it like? What's it like? How does that work? How can that be? And it's like, no, look, we've got lives to lead, and we're human beings. And if you want to get to know us, sure, we'll talk about, stuff, but don't take my experience as being the same as Ben's or Cindy's or Beck's or anybody else. It's like, there's a vast, there is no single roadmap to this is what you must be to be authentic trans. I mean, there's no check marks to go down. Everybody's experience is different, and just like every other person's experience is different. This is one aspect of who we are, but it's not the only one. And the problem comes when newspapers want to focus on just that aspect of who we are. They don't want to focus on our accomplishments, our lives. They want to focus on the trans. And what that does is essentially and completely dehumanizing. It takes us out and puts us in an other box that people can editorialize about and have shows on and question stuff like this. To what end? I mean, it doesn't help us. And Ben, you've got a really good point. It doesn't help us to say, "Oh, I get it." It's like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You just have to like cut us some slack and realize there is no agenda. There is no movement, really, aside from the notion that we're just people. We shouldn't have laws made about us because of one aspect of who we are.
Yeah, I mean, how would they like it if we started attacking them and going, "Why are you cis?" Oh my God. Could you imagine if we, like, everybody under the umbrella attacked everybody that's cishet and just, "What's wrong? What's in your pants? You still have a penis?" Ooh, I mean, that's what they do to us. How would they feel? And I tell people that. I don't walk up to people in the street and go, "Ooh, you're straight? Oh, you're going to hell." Like, no, nobody. You can't even say that anyways. But no, that's what, and that's the thing is they want to talk about the agenda and how we get, the only reason we get angry is because of how they treat us. We're not angry people. I spend more time laughing than anything, but yeah, if you disrespect us and you want to stick us in a little box and label us and get everybody, yeah, we're going to get upset. Yeah. It's irritating after a while. I mean, I can't even, I've only been doing this for a year and a half. I can't imagine what like Stephanie's been through or Jenny Morgan. She's 43 years now, oh my God, I can't even imagine, it's horrible.
It's actually pretty easy. It's like I said, it's like I very rarely get it, it's like what, whatever, but there's, as I said, 20 years ago, it was, I think, easier than it is today. And that's because Mermaids did this survey in 2018, comparing 2018, the British press, 2018 to 2012. And let's see, a few notes. It's really quite remarkable. There are 3.5 times as many articles about trans people between 2012 and 2018 in the British press. 23 times more mentions of trans kids. 56 of 100 random mentions of trans kids describe them as existing or needing support. 37 were disapproving, suggesting they should not be supported in transitioning, or efforts to support them are unneeded. In other words, they'll grow out of it. And 7 are kind of neutral. And trans people are described as threats in 586 articles, 2018 to 2019, compared to 5 times, 5 in 2012.
Yeah. I'm sure it has nothing to do with Trump.
Yeah, I'm sure it has nothing to do. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the Heritage Foundation or the Koch brothers or the who has an agenda? Somebody else, not us. Who has an agenda? Those people have an agenda. They're, funding. Rupert Murdoch is, worldwide. Every single one of his publications, whether it's the Times of London or the Wall Street Journal, or the guy has a thing. There's big money going into demonizing us.
Of course, yeah.
Described as criminals 608 times, 18 to 19, as opposed to 3 times in 2012. 3. It's supposed to. I mean, come on. No mention
go back
of the
10 years before that. What do you have?
Exactly. No mention whatsoever of the quote unquote transgender lobby in 2012, 151, 18 and 19. You know,
that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Charolette, you wanted to say something?
I had several things that come up, but I didn't want to interrupt, and I think I've kind of lost. But definitely, I think it's very common for like bigotry to frame itself as trying to protect, right? Like that's usually, especially women and children, is what they pretend that they're trying to protect. Really, it's their profits, and trying to deflect blame from the things that they're doing often. But yeah, I don't know. I've lost the things that I was going to say. I apologize. So somebody else.
I was thinking about what Ben said a little while ago about them saying, why don't you just be a gay person that's butch or whatever. I did that for 20 years. It didn't work. I was still miserable. I tried all 3 paths. I'm actually happy now. So they can kiss my like, it's just, how can you even tell somebody to do something like that? That would be like us going to the cis het people that are ahead of church and say, well, have you tried being gay? Well, why haven't you tried it? Anyway.
Have you tried being Muslim?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That was actually that, now that's coming back. Thank you, Beck, because that got me back to what I had, demanding that somebody, or even asking that somebody help you to understand their experience. It's really just sort of like the light version of justify your existence to me. Exactly. It sort of has some of those same shades going on there. I think it's you don't have to understand anybody's experience to respect them as a person.
Absolutely. And the just black and white of it, I don't understand why it matters to them. Unless you're going to date someone who's trans or under the umbrella, or sleep with them, or try to kiss them, or anything sexual, then why would it matter to you?
Because they want to know how to.
Literally doesn't matter to them. I don't care what they're doing in their bedroom. I'm not going, ew, heterosexual sex. I mean, why does it matter to them what we do in our bedroom, what we look like undressed? It really has nothing to do with a damn thing about their lives at all.
Well, and it's really not even about.
Complain about us are in these little tiny, undiverse communities full of a bunch of white rednecks and stuff. I know, because I used to live in a lot of countries and a lot of country areas in a lot of states. They're all the same. And they're worried about, why are you worried? They're not even live around you. Stay out of the cities if you don't like it. Stay away from diversity. Go hide in the country and be your prejudiced white self. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. The people that hate us the most of them have never met a trans person
that they're aware.
And I would love to go talk to all the people I've met in the area I live in, because not one of them has any idea I'm trans. And all of them say, "Oh, I can tell." No, you shut up. No, you can't. No, you can't tell. When I met Steph, I had no idea, and I have radar, and she slid right underneath of it. So yeah, I don't understand.
Well, and there is there's quite the obsession with gender, really. Like, I have small children, and like when you are pregnant, that is like the number one question everybody asks. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl? Like, and that's the first thing out of their mouths.
It's a baby.
Or
it's a human baby.
It has 10 digits. So, I mean, we're good.
Right. And when they learn you have kids, oh, do you have a boy or a girl? And it's like, well, if you have a non-binary child, that becomes a very awkward question, really, to try to answer, because there's this like, okay, so do I get into the whole thing of explaining and out my child that they're non-binary, or do I misgender them? Like, it's not an easy question to answer for some people, or for parents of trans kids. Actually, it's easier if they are like transgender girls or transgender boys, because then you just say you have a son or daughter, and there's no explanation needed.
Right. Well, that's really the key, is to hide it, and that's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Kids shouldn't have to hide who they are. Kids shouldn't have to go to school and oh, I can't talk about who I am because I'll get in trouble. I'll get expelled. My parents will get in trouble. I mean, they consider it child abuse in Texas if you give your trans child support, And speaking of grooming, that made me think of something. This whole everything's got to be pink and blue thing. Like, they're grooming their children to be exactly what they want them to be. If you want to talk about grooming, I mean, the religious community and the bigots are the biggest groomers in the world, in my opinion.
It's actually really, really hard to find like baby clothes and small child's clothes that aren't either like super pink and ruffles or like blue and sports and it's just you can't even find like yellow or green or any of the other colors. Everything is just super polarized.
I think Carter's or something. My friend has 3 children. It's the only reason I know this. I think they're the ones that have greens and tans and light yellows and stuff like that. But you're right. Most of them don't even offer that to you. You have to go out and you have to search for them and pay more money to get something that's not pink or blue. Or
my favorite on that point is like we're groomers, but also kids. Apparently kids don't know who they are when they're under the age of, like, they keep trying to change the age, like they're moving the goalposts. Like, it was like they don't know who they are at 18, like they don't know who they are at 21, they don't know who they are at 25. Like, y'all are just trying to move this up so that young people don't get any say in anything that goes on with their bodies. But it's like, okay, so you're gonna simultaneously make the argument that a kid doesn't know who they are and they're not old enough to make decisions about their lives, but you're doing like altar calls for like 3-year-olds. Like, you're like, I accepted Jesus at age 2 as if I had any control over what was going on. Like the fact that I had the fear of hell in my brain since age 2. And trans people are the groomers, but this is okay. Like, it's okay to tell them that they're going to hell if they're not good enough for Jesus. Like, okay.
And besides that, they also have those disgusting child pageants.
Oh yeah.
And if that's not grooming, then I don't know what is.
Well, I mean, if you grew up religious and you had your confirmation, like, you were dressed up in a little bitty wedding gown, if you were socialized as a girl.
Yeah.
Gonna go have your communion and
marry Jesus.
Marry Jesus, yeah.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. So the point I wanted to talk about is that so tomorrow I will be on the nonprofits, and we had a very interesting article that talked about emotions. We talked about fear and anger, but another emotion that's very, very effective to rally people behind is disgust. If you manage to provoke disgust from a community, then it's very, very, very easy to target them. Like Jews were rats, or like black people or whatever they were called before. Every time you want to demonize a community, you make them disgusting. And since disgust is one of the emotion that protects us, like when you're disgusted by food, it's a way of protecting yourself from bad food, for example. So triggering this specific emotion is very, very, very effective against us. And so how can we because sex is, we've been under the rule of Christianity for 2000 years, and sex have been indoctrinated into us as something that we should be ashamed of. And because of that, because trans we change sex according to them, or that's how they perceive it, then it's very, very easy to trigger the ick factor from this point of view. What do you think?
What's funny is we change sex according to them, but we can't change sex according to them. You know, it's like, well, make up your freaking mind. You know, I would, for those of us who go through medical transition, I would say, well, you know, how deep do you want to go? Did I change my chromosomes? I don't think so, but in fact, I'm pretty sure. Did I change the expression of my genes in my physicality? Why, yes, I did. So is that sex? Is that not sex? I don't understand. You know, you draw the line. Student Dr. Ben is a medical fella, and he could probably get into it. But there's, you know, on the one hand, how icky it is to change your sex. On the other hand, you can't change your sex, so you're deluded, and so you're disgusting. You know, the very nature of wanting to live as who you are is so foreign and so outside the pale that you know, they're trying to rile up disgust by accusing us of being groomers and pedophiles and this and that, and, you know, all of these things. And what's interesting is, and scary, is, you know, if you look at Der Stürmer in Weimar, Germany in the late 20s and early 30s, this was the drumbeat, the same kind of drumbeat that I just went through with the British press, that over and over and over again reinforcing the idea that these people are dangerous and blah 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 blah, and you're getting to see the same things. And you know, one of the curious things about when the very first book burnings were at the library for sex research, the very first ones, and they went in and pulled out the books and Magnus Hirschfield's stuff. They saved the records, though, the patient records, so they could pick them up and lock them up. And, you know, we're seeing this sort of thing happen. Are we under attack? I would say we are, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's never stopped. It gets quieter and people forget about it, and then it peaks again.
Yeah, that's a very good point that the Atlantic Creole brought up there, that all people, assuming that people who oppose that, all the transphobic people are in rural areas is
but
not,
that's not what I said.
not accurate, because there's plenty in urban areas as well, even though they're around it and it's more diverse. But
that's not what I said. I said all the states I've lived in, where I've lived in the country, which have been like 9 or 10 states now. I think I'm on 10. That there has been that bigotry, and that in those communities were all white people. There was no gay people, there was no trans people, they had no diversity. So what my point is if that's the way they live and they're happy with, just stay out there. It doesn't involve you. That was.
I don't think transphobia. I don't think transphobia has any particular boundaries of belief,
no.
Or of society. I think it's just a thing that, you know, there are plenty of atheists that have exhibited somewhat sus behavior towards trans people.
Absolutely.
There are obviously tons of religious folks who have displayed sus behavior towards trans people. There are also some religious folks who put themselves at risk for trans people. So I think it's I think the communication is more important, and steady communication. That's like, we are just people, you know. Are you willing to just accept us as people? Are you willing to just sort of, you know, give us a solid and treat us fairly? It doesn't matter whether you have a God belief or you don't have a God belief. It's what you do with that. It's what do you do with this? If you are a Bible thumper and you say that gay sex is terrible, trans people don't exist, and this, that, and the other thing, and the Earth is fucking 5,000 years old and flat, what do you do with that? I mean, that has obvious. You're not living in reality with this, because the fact is, there are gay people, there are trans people. The Earth is not flat.
Yeah, and they're everywhere. And if you think you don't know any, you're probably just not a safe person for them to be themselves with.
Damn right, Atlantic Creole, there are.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So, how can we defend ourselves? I know that's a big question, but
I don't know, tear down every church that hates people, and take one of those little things from Men in Black and erase their memory, because I mean, there's no way to stop it until people decide that they're not going to be bigots.
Well,
there's
only
the so much we can do.
Like, so as much as like I'm in favor of like people wanting to raise awareness and stuff, like that's the bare minimum. And like I was mentioning earlier, it's like can be a problem sometimes with the need to understand people, or the putting trans people up in front to say justify yourself to me. So I get that it's well intentioned that a lot of people want to just keep talking about trans awareness, but we need to take action. And so I think instead of prioritizing making trans people prove themselves to you, how about we focus energy on where do we go from here? How do we take steps to change what's going on? Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening around us, and there's a lot of people that are very organized in their efforts to oppress trans people. So we need to be organized, and it's not going to be, I'm not saying that it's easy to do anything, but like we need to be aggressive and fight back against things, because once there is no opposition, if we go back and hide, like they're just going to keep doing the same things, just now without opposition. So what does this look like as a community? What actual steps can we take? Who can we call? What policies can we write? What medical guidelines can we write? What studies can we do? Like, it's not enough to sit back and be like, yeah, I agree with trans people existing. Like, the consequences are real, and our actions also need to be real. So I think we need to organize and make stuff happen. The question is how.
We need, and we need as many cis allies as we can get, because the bottom line is people that are opposed to us that are cis, they're not going to listen to us. They're going to listen to you guys. And that's why allies are so extremely important for us.
And that's what I tried to put across at this talk I gave at a Methodist church. Atheist goes to preach at a Methodist church on Trans Day of Remembrance.
It was
what
great.
I wanted to get across was, look, it's not enough for us to sit here today and, in light of the fact that, that morning, was the Colorado shooting and all of this, which kind of threw a monkey wrench. May I revise and extend my remarks? But it's not enough for you to sit in a pew and listen to me talk about the sorrow I feel for the people we've lost, including the several we lost just today. You need to get out of the pews and you need to get into the streets. You need to go to the voting booths. You need to step forward to say these people are just people. They have sorrows. They have joys. Lots and lots of joy in their lives. They bring joy to other people's lives. And we're not going to let the newspapers or the politicians separate us from our family, because they're part of our family. I mean, that's your commission, you people sitting, you blue-haired sitting in the pews and watching on the screen. Your commission is to fucking do something. And it's just that simple. When you fight fascism by ordinary people getting out there and saying, get over yourselves. No, we're not going to allow jackbooted thugs to bust into. The church had to lock its doors because it had gotten a threat. And, okay, you're at the tip of the spear now too. Recognize it. Don't tolerate this. You good Christian people. I use the you don't hide your light under a bushel. You don't hide your light under a basket thing. You've got to let everybody's light shine, including your own. And to the extent that you have people wishing to extinguish those bright lights like they did in Colorado, you've got to say no. You've got to hold up the lamp. Sorry. Breachy.
I feel like I need to say something to the Atlantic Creole, because I understand that they're trying to be an ally, but half the things you're saying are anti-ally. So if you'd like to have conversations with one of us and maybe get some more information so you understand better what we go through, I would totally be up to talking to you. But see, the problem is you have this much information. I feel like you need some more.
Yeah,
that's
I was
not
going
being
to
an
react.
ally, honey. That's one of
I
the
was going to react to the last one. Cisgender women deserve their own space. What does that even mean?
Well, what I said was in the chat, I said, do me a favor and find out how many places are cis safe and the number of places that are trans safe. Let me know how much bigger the cis number is. Because the misconception here is that cis people don't have a safe. Everywhere is safe for cis people. Everywhere.
I want to just make that.
You've gone, Creole, that you've been attacked as a cis person, because it probably has. You probably have not been attacked for your gender ever.
Look,
I know you said you're an ally, and I appreciate that, but you're way off. You're off base.
Women's spaces. You made this qualification. Cisgender women deserve their own space. Well, first of all, trans women and cis women have been sharing space since before you were fucking born, dude. And, and most of the time, it's not, in fact, almost all the time, it's not an issue. I mean, what's your concern? That some man could go into the women's room? Some man can go into the women's room any fucking day of the week with ill intent.
Yeah,
but trans women are women.
Mm-hmm.
And cis women are women. Trans men are men.
And men are men.
Would you care to see either of these gentlemen go into the ladies? Because they deserve their own space? Cut me some slack, dude.
I'm so trying not to get angry at this person.
Mm-hmm.
I just did on your behalf.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things from this very sentence. Cisgender women deserve their own space. Is the first question is what for? Why do you need space specific for cisgender women. What's the purpose? And to protect yourself from what? It's this makes no sense.
That's the language of bigotry, though, that women and children, etc., need to be protected from these people that are being demonized by the media and politicians, and
And I want to say, I apologize. So this is the kind of thing. It's like a little needle like that is what, would cause people to say, well, why are these trans people so angry? Well, it's because it's really hard. It's really, really hard to process a nudge like that. And, really, I'm perfectly calm and honestly, trans women and cis women have been using the same spaces for decades, centuries.
Thanks
and to
for
think that
proving
they
that.
haven't is just to be terribly ignorant.
Thanks for proving that the show was needed, by the way. Yeah, it's I don't understand how they can feel threatened by us. I mean, regardless of everything we said so far about fear and anger and disgust, I mean, in the end, what are you afraid of?
We're different. That's all it is. It's right back to what Steph said about making us disgusting because we're different. And once you make us disgusting, that's it. And I agree with that. And Cindy said it as well. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably why they focus so much, like when they want to demonize gay people, they want to focus on, sex and things like that, which I'm sure if you described heterosexual sex to people, they would probably also find that inappropriate and disgusting. And then with trans people, it's all about like the medical procedures. Like they go right to, that everybody's having surgeries to alter their genitalia, which is not the case in all cases, and none of their business, flat out. So
nobody's business, exactly.
No,
whoever your partner, it's their business. Nobody else. Yeah, exactly. And I want to point out real quick, I feel like these people don't read statistics or really look into things before they open their mouths. You know what the highest percentage of pedophiles are, and child molesters and rapists? They all identify as cishet white men. That's the largest number. It's like 80 some odd percent. So if you want to be scared of somebody, you might want to be scared of like your preacher or Uncle so-and-so sitting in the pew next to you, because they're the ones that are going to do it to you. Don't be afraid of us. We're not doing that shit.
I'm sorry. I'm interrupting.
We are living our true selves, so we have no reason to hide. We're not hiding who we are, and we're not pretending to be somebody else, and we're not running around following children through the schoolyard and shit. That's you guys' gig, not ours.
Yeah, there's a comment I want to respond to if Wes can put beige peel on. Yes, thanks. So just because we responded to someone whose name was the Atlantic Creole, that doesn't mean we were responding to them because of this. We were responding to what they said, not who they were. That's the difference. And that's why this comment is stupid and wrong. I mean, that's we see this response every time we try to have those kind of discussions. I mean, if you criticize the actions of the state of Israel, then you are an anti-Semite. If you if you criticize Muslims, then you are a racist. If you, uh, it's always the same, and that drives me crazy.
There's also, it is problematic, like saying that people have the right to disagree, and like, yeah, you technically have the right to disagree, but like that does not mean we need to give you a platform to state things that deliberately cause harm to people. And the problem is, like, if you disagree, like the issue isn't like some small thing, like I disagree that like pizza is a good food. Like that's, you can have whatever opinions you want about that, but like this isn't, I disagree that you are a person and should be treated as such. Like that's not a take that deserves to be platformed. And if someone disagrees with your humanity, that's not a disagreement that you get to chalk up as, well, I just had a difference of opinion. No, your difference of opinion hurts people. So while you can have it, that doesn't mean that you get to have it without opposition. So there's this flawed argument that people like to say of like, you don't believe in free speech because you don't let me say whatever I want unopposed. It's like, no, you have the right to speak, but you don't have the right to be free from consequences for the things that you say. And this is what's happening. We're not limiting your right to speak, but we are not letting you get away without consequences for the things that you said.
I would ask.
And
Yeah, and it's not.
I would ask either of those folks, what other adjective, as applied to women, a descriptor of woman, would you propose have their own space? What other adjective? Give it some thought, because if trans women can be excluded from cis women, what other descriptor of women should have their own separate spaces?
And I also find it curious that trans people will let anybody in, but we're not allowed into everywhere. We literally accept everybody for who they are. That's because that's what we want. Yeah.
To respond to what Ben just said, I'd like to add that not only you are not free from the consequences of what you say, but also you can indeed believe whatever you want. You can think the most egregious thing you want, but the second that you express them, then they can be criticized. You cannot expect to express whatever idea you have and then also expect not to be challenged. That's not how it works. You can speak, you can say whatever you want, but that's part of discourse and also free speech, that I have the right to say that you are wrong, and that's not an infringement on your free speech.
And just so Beige Pill knows, we addressed several comments from that person and tried to talk them through it, and they began to become more attacky, and that's why we kicked them out of here. It's not, we don't need people fighting in the chat. This is about having a discussion and an adult conversation, not about attacking each other.
And just let's make it quite clear, though, supporting spaces for cisgender people only means we are going to ban transgender people from these spaces. It's not about having a safe space for cisgender people. It's about excluding trans people. That's the problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And addressing like the underlying tone there of why are you excluding them? And that's the social stigma of why people think trans people are icky. It's like you're excluding them, and then follow that up with your reasoning behind why they should be excluded, and you get to some really not very great undertones there to that thought process.
And then we go right back to, why are you angry? Seriously, how many times you got to beat this bush? Like the fact that most of us can get together and have a civil conversation with people it amazes me at the good hearts we have in our community, because we're attacked left and right. Like Ben was saying, social media everywhere. I'm the only one that's probably safe where I live, because I live in a very open-minded area, but it's not like that for most people. Most people, they walk out the door, they're worried that they're going to get attacked. Thank you, Cindy.
No, I was going to say maybe I am the safest here. I live in Belgium, so
right. Well, yeah, and that's the point, is not everybody has the privilege of living in a space that is safe.
Yeah.
And we get attacked all the time, and we walk out the door, we go to the grocery store, we'll get attacked. We go to a doctor and they're, misgendering us and being rude and intentionally using our dead name because we haven't changed it yet, to embarrass us and put us on the spot in front of people. And then you guys wonder, but at the same time, when we have spaces that we feel safe, we'll invite anybody in. Anybody that's an ally, come on in, join us. Let's get to know each other. Let's have a good conversation. But they don't, it's the opposite for them. They hate and they cut off, and you don't have the cis card, you can't come in, but we don't do that.
I just want to go to when you start trying to parse out, what or who is a woman. If you want to go to Matt Walsh's thing, more frequently than not, the people that get caught up in that gender policing of women are cis women, not trans women.
The ones that aren't feminine
More
enough, yeah.
That are not feminine presenting enough. I mean, there's stories after stories after stories of some butch lesbian getting called out by someone in a ladies' room. It's just, once you start and I think all of us on the distaff side have been around long enough to know that the policing of femininity is huge in culture. It's part of the fundamental misogyny that we have to deal with.
There was a story
on a daily basis.
News recently about it was an athletic competition. I don't even remember what kind of athletic competition it was, but there was one of the person who won had accusations that she must be transgender because she won, and so then she had to go through all of this testing and really this whole unnecessary process, and she wasn't. But it was an accusation leveled because they wanted to accuse her of cheating to win, because they didn't win and they were upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, my sport is pretty co-ed, and it's like there are very, very few categories, and where men and women are separated, and part of that has to do with equipment. I mean, sailing is a very equipment dependent sport, but a successful woman in the sport would always, the guys would always be sitting there saying, "Oh, well, she beat me, but she's not really a woman." Well, because you got your ass kicked, got your ass handed to you by this extremely talented woman sailor, and it's just so curious, and so you shake your head and go, "What?" And if even in professional athletics, the only people who have ever been kicked out of the Olympic Games or world level events, the vast preponderance, I don't know of any trans woman who's been kicked out of the Olympics, because first of all, there's only been one in the Olympics and since 2004. So the people that suffer the consequences are cis women with high levels of testosterone. for the most part. And interestingly enough, mostly from the continent of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Black women. So, you know, I think they deserve their space on the Angola team. You know, I think that in sport, particularly at the elite level, has been dealing with this issue for decades now in various iterations. And because a poli-sci major at a poli-sci undergraduate has a particular opinion on who should be competing on the playing field, it doesn't carry as much weight with me as the International Olympic Committee does.
Yeah. Okay, so we are now at an hour 15, so we've been past the hour mark. I'd like to thank almost everyone in the chat for joining us and engaging with us. If you can, please like, subscribe, share, comment, as long as you're respectful, obviously. I would like to thank all the guests that came tonight. We had a very, very interesting chat. And I'm going to to groom you for a second.
Yay! Let me get my comb. Where's my comb? I've got this hairbrush here.
What the Beck? Where can we find you?
I'm sorry, you're asking me. You and Stephanie, I can't handle you two together. You're too funny. Well, my channel name is What the Beck. And I haven't done much lately, but I think I might be getting into streaming here again soon. But you'll find me all around the atheist community on different panels and stuff. So just keep an eye out.
Stephanie?
You'll find me behind a sewing machine pretty much all the time. You know, and I'm on Twitter, and I think my link tree is up there somewhere. I don't have anything going on right now in particular, but if you want to see that talk I did, it's on my YouTube channel.
Really good, worth watching.
It's about the only thing that is. But you know, I hang out with student Dr. Ben's little crazy game show every now and again, and Neil's place, and I get around. But mostly, I just try to live. Really. Same.
Yeah. Ben?
Yeah, I've got a lot of places where I show up. I'm an official host of Talk Heathen with the ACA. I'm also an official host of the Transatlantic Call-In Show on the line. And then I have my own show called Medical Myths, which is on Saturdays on my YouTube channel. And then I've got Smarty Pints Trivia every Friday evening after Truth Wanted. So that's where you can find me.
Nice. Charolette?
I'm mostly just here, so.
Yeah, I've been on Ben's regular gig on 3 occasions now. Mm-hmm. Once with Ben, once with Katie, and once with Arden. So I don't know, maybe sometime.
I'm jelly.
Yeah, me too.
So I got all 3. You know, I got them all 3.
Cindy and I are going to petition.
Yeah. Let's do that.
We want to talk.
As for me, you can find me here as well. Sometimes on the Global Atheist, sometimes on Women Atheists UNLOAD, and I'm a regular co-host on the Nonprofit. That's where you can find me. So again, thanks everyone. I'd like also to thank the 2 people who gave us a super chat. So including the person that we had to kick out, the Atlantic Creole, and then thank you both for your donation. It's very much appreciated. If you want to support the channel, you can, as I said, like, subscribe, share, comment, but you can also join our Patreons. I don't have the list right now, but we have, I think it's, oh, yeah, I have them. So we have Kathy Cotton, Michael Wiseman, Deborah Grace, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone, and myself.
Nice.
And so, sorry, I wish you a very nice and a weekend, nice Sunday. Hope you will enjoy it, everyone. And in the meantime, I wish you well. Goodbye,
I don't
everyone.
ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love